You are holding a glass bowl in front of the most powerful man in the world, and you are about to throw it at the floor as hard as you can. Every guard in the room has a hand resting on a sword hilt. Nobody expects the glass to survive. Nobody is entirely sure you will survive either, but you already know something none of them do. And by the end of this story, you'll understand exactly why an invention that should have made you rich instead got you executed within the hour. This actually happened, or at least 3 separate Roman writers swore that it did. Sometime under Emperor Tiberius, in the 1st century AD, a craftsman walked into the imperial court holding a drinking bowl made of something that should not have existed: unbreakable glass. 3 Roman writers recorded some version of this story. Petronius wrote it into his novel, the Satyricon. Pliny the Elder put it in his natural history. The historian Cassius Dio wrote it down separately, decades later, and a medieval chronicler named Matthew Paris later placed the whole event at a specific year, 21 AD. Whether or not every detail is true, that alone should tell you something. This story didn't come from one gossip, it came from 4. For almost 2,000 years, this account has survived as one of history's strangest warnings. That some inventions aren't destroyed because they fail. They're destroyed because they work. Here's the demonstration, the way Pliny described it. You bring the emperor a drinking bowl, glass, but wrong somehow. Too heavy in the hand, faintly metallic under the light, catching the torchlight in a way ordinary glass never does. Tiberius examines it, unimpressed, turning it over once, and hands it back to you without a word. That's when you throw it, not a drop. A full, deliberate hurl, straight at the stone floor. Hard enough that everyone in the room flinches. Ordinary Roman glass would have exploded into 100 pieces. This doesn't. It hits the ground, and instead of shattering, it dents, like bronze, like something that was never really glass at all. You pick it back up, you take out a small hammer, a few careful taps, and the dent disappears. The bowl is smooth again, whole again, as if nothing happened. Pliny calls it vitrum flexile, flexible glass. And in that single moment, you have just made every gold and silver coin in the emperor's treasury look a little less impressive. Rome's entire economy ran on the value of 2 metals, the gold aureus, the silver denarius. Soldiers were paid in it. Grain was bought with it. An empire that stretched across 3 continents balanced its books on the assumption that gold and silver would always stay rare, and rare things stay valuable. Here's the question nobody in that room is asking out loud yet. If glass can bend instead of break, cost almost nothing to make, and never wear out, why would anyone pay for gold and silver ever again? But that's not even the strangest part of what happens next. Tiberius asks you one question. Just one. Does anyone else know how to make this? And your answer to that single question is about to decide whether you walk out of this room alive. According to Cassius Dio, you tell the truth. No one else knows the secret. Only you. Wrong answer. Tiberius has you executed on the spot and orders your workshop torn apart along with you. Pliny records the emperor's reasoning directly. In his own words, he did it so that gold and silver would not be reduced in value. Not because the glass was dangerous. Not because it was fake. Because it worked. And it threatened to make 2 of the most valuable substances on Earth suddenly worth less. Roman executions were not slow, and they were not gentle. This was likely over in seconds. A guard, a blade, a body on the floor of the same room where you had just performed a miracle. The secret to unbreakable glass died with you on purpose, by design, because an emperor decided that protecting the price of gold mattered more than a technology that could have outlasted the empire itself. Which raises an uncomfortable question. Would you have lied? Would you have said someone else knew the formula too, just to stay useful, just to stay alive long enough to escape? Be honest with yourself for a second, because the real answer to that question is harder than it sounds, and the version of you that lies might be the only version that survives the room. Here's where the story gets even stranger, though, because almost none of it can actually be proven. No archaeological evidence of flexible Roman glass has ever been found. Not one fragment, not one workshop, not one Roman document describing exactly how it was made. And Pliny himself, the very man recording the story, adds a warning right inside his own account. He writes that the tale was, in his own words, more widely spread than well authenticated. In other words, even the Roman writing this down thought it might be nonsense. Here's the detail that convinces most modern historians it's fiction. Both Pliny and Petronius belonged to the Roman elite, and both had reasons to dislike Tiberius personally. A man remembered as cynical, tactless, and paranoid about money in a way that made him easy to mock. A story where the emperor murders a genius over pocket change fits exactly what people already wanted to believe about him. It's the kind of rumor that spreads because it's satisfying, not because it's accurate. So here's a question worth sitting with for a second. If this entire story is just a rumor Rome wanted to believe about an emperor it already hated, Does that make what happened to you less real? Or does it just mean the evidence got smashed along with the workshop, and the only thing that survived was the part people found satisfying to repeat? Decide for yourself, because historians still argue about it. But here's the detail that keeps some of them from writing it off completely. If flexible glass wasn't pure fiction, modern chemists actually have a real theory for how it might have worked. Add a small amount of boric oxide to a glass mixture, and the resulting material becomes noticeably harder to shatter. Borax, the mineral source of that oxide, was already moving along trade routes between the East and the Mediterranean in the ancient world. And there's a detail almost nobody mentions. Boric acid occurs naturally in the steam vents of the Tuscan Maremma, not far from Rome at all. It's entirely possible some Roman craftsmen stumbled onto the right mixture completely by accident, centuries before anyone understood the chemistry behind it and had no idea what he'd actually found until the emperor did. Which means the legend might be pointing at something real, not a myth invented from nothing, but a genuine discovery, misunderstood, feared, and erased so completely that only the rumor of it survived 2,000 years. If that twist got you, the like button's right there. And if you think this kind of thing only happened once, in one room, under one paranoid emperor, you're not paying close enough attention to how power actually works. In 1924, executives from the world's largest light bulb manufacturers met in Geneva and formed what historians now call the Phoebus Cartel. Light bulbs at the time could burn for 2,500 hours or more. The cartel agreed, deliberately and in writing, to cap that lifespan at 1,000 hours instead, and find any member company whose bulbs lasted longer than that. There is a bulb burning right now in a fire station in Livermore, California, installed in 1901 and still glowing well past a century later, precisely because it was made before anyone decided that things lasting too long was bad for business. You don't need an emperor with a sword for this to happen. You just need enough money to decide that your customers buying again is worth more than your customers never needing you at all. That's the real reason a story about a glassmaker under Tiberius has survived for 2,000 years, true or not. It was never really about the glass. It's about what happens the moment an invention threatens to make scarcity, and the profit sitting on top of it obsolete. You are standing in front of the most powerful man in the world, holding proof that something everyone believed was fragile didn't have to be. Some historians think that moment never happened at all. Some think a fragment of it is buried somewhere in the Roman record, or in a mineral vent in Tuscany, still waiting to be found. Either way, the bowl's still dense. It still doesn't shatter. And somewhere between the myth and the mineral, an idea that could have outlasted an empire got smashed anyway, just not by hitting the floor. More stories like this every week. If that's the kind of history you actually want to know, subscribe if you'd rather learn what the powerful tried to bury than what they wanted remembered. Because glass wasn't the only invention that got quietly erased once someone realized what it threatened. Some ancient methods were designed to kill on purpose and leave absolutely no trace behind. That story is right here.